Kia ora team, Willy Silcock here with another video. This video here is going to be the basics of refereeing. It will be relatively rough. Unfortunately, I was trying to get a few subject matter experts in, but ran out of time. So I do want to get this video out before the club champs. Looking for feedback on this one because this is something that I want to expand on. So giving this a first crack, going to be really rough, but we'll see where we get to. Just before I start, this video does assume that you have a base knowledge of playing the game. So you played the game a bit, you kind of understand the rules to a certain point, but you're wanting to take this to the next level so you feel confident when you go out there and referee. First thing to cover are the principles of refereeing. So there's kind of three overarching principles. First one being fair play, everyone playing within the spirit of the game. So if people aren't acting in the spirit of the game, it's probably going to be a foul the other way. So need to keep that in mind. It's a spectacle sport. It's a spectator sport. So we are a little bit more attacking minded when it comes to that from a refereeing perspective. We want to see a spectacle. We want to make sure that it's an entertaining sport. And the last thing is making sure that we keep players from hurting themselves or each other. So there are our three kind of key driven principles. We have two referees, one being the line ref and the other one being the court referee. And we'll go into their kind of positioning a little bit later. But generally, what you have is when you are the line ref is when the attack is heading towards the goal that you're close to, and when you are the court ref, you will move into the court and the attack will be running away from you, and the goal is in the far side. When you're the line ref, you're going to position yourself so you can see if the ball clearly crosses the goal. That usually means you're kind of straddling the baseline. You're usually the ref who blows the whistle for the goal, and the overruling factor for deciding whether or not it's 1 or 2 points based on foot position. If there's any doubt, till you come together and make a decision. Really helpful if you're blindsided. And this is generally also the referee that's looking for 6-metre violations, whether that's the attacking or defending team. The court referee, first thing, follow the game, don't sit on the baseline, so follow up the court. You're generally going to stick a couple of metres back from where the middle player is attacking from, but that's where you want to be so you can see properly. And you're the person who's looking for in-game fouls, so contact, travel, double dribble, letting go of the ball fully, etc. I do just want to put a short piece with those two refs on coming together. We would do this when there's disagreement or doubt on the call. Make sure you use appropriately, like you've got to have confidence in yourself and your abilities. So if you see something that you're 95% confident on, there's no need to come together. But of course, that's going to, so you don't want to overuse coming together because you want to make sure the players are the star of the show, not refs. But that's also context specific. If you've got a really tight game, maybe you do want to make sure that call. So coming together is completely fine. Just some responsibilities. We'll start with before the game and at tip-off. So you're ultimately responsible for keeping people to time. So using your timekeepers and your duty members, keeping to time, just making sure that everything's going ahead. The toss, deciding on sides. One thing that's really important to do as the referee before the game is looking for things that could injure players that people are wearing or equipment. So smart watches are a no-no. They should be covered up at a bare minimum, but shouldn't really be on. Hard-brimmed hats, unless they're backwards. So hard-brimmed hats are another one. Jewelry is a pretty obvious one. So no bangles, no rings, no earrings. All that should be covered up, and that's something that the referee needs to keep an off. And then the tip-off. So what's typically going to happen is you'll have one referee be the ball tosser. They're going to face away from the bench. The other referee is going to signal the start of the game with a whistle as they throw up and making sure that the bench is ready to go. And then what we need to make sure that we do is, as a unit, as a refereeing unit, talk to each other so we know which corners we're going to be going back to when we play our line and court ref scenario. Just to go into a little bit of positioning during the match. So once we've done the toss, the match has started. What we need to ensure is when we are picking a side that we're going away from the goalkeeper's entry zone, because otherwise we'll get in the players positionings as they come off and on, because you're going to be running backwards as the goalkeeper wants to come on. So you're going opposite your goalkeeper. So we can see the goalkeeper's entering here. So we'd be coming on here as the red referee, and then we're moving up into the playing zone and back in those types of lines. So that's our positioning. Warnings versus suspension. So progressive punishment as per usual. If there's anything that kind of break those principles, so fair play or putting people at harm, that's where you can you don't necessarily need progressive punishment. If you do believe someone's acting in an unfair manner or putting people in danger, you can immediately suspend or disqualify them if that's something that you want to do. But generally, for things like contact on shots, it might be warning, then suspension, and then after the suspension, obviously in beach we only get one suspension, and then if you get a second, you're disqualified. Really important from a refereeing perspective that we keep the flow of the game. So if you're seeing some contact, because it is a non-contact sport, but if you're seeing some contact and it's not ruining the flow of the game, we can play advantage on that, let the game flow out. And just a note on switching, generally if there's a time stoppage for any reason, so that could be ball goes too far out, there's a penalty, etc., we would switch sides. If we haven't really switched sides all that much, you can just kind of stay in your space. So at half time, when the teams switch, you'll kind of get a fair and reasonable kind of court and line time for both teams. But you just kind of play that one by ear and try and make sure that you're switching. So you approximately get 50% at each end with the attackers and defenders. Moving on to kind of some typical fouls. So I'll try and explain these the best I can, but again, I'm not a subject matter expert in this. This is really just a beginner's guide. There's a lot more nuance to this, and the hope is that we extend this series to be a lot more informative and a lot more technical. That's the hope. So hopefully we'll get to there, but I'm going to give you a little bit of context on some typical fouls. So defensive contact, so where the attackers would keep the ball. What is going to happen here is the defender contacts or disadvantages the attacker while obstructing a player, but and that defending player is moving, or and that doesn't necessarily mean just their feet, so it can be their hips moving across, can be putting their hands up, etc. So on the flip side, an offensive contact foul is when the attacker runs into the defender and that defender's space, that defender has owned that space by being stationary. So that's typically how you'd see a screen in basketball or etc. So, but that player does have to be still. They can't be bumping their hips across. They can't be jumping into position. They have to be set first. Once you're set in the space, you own the space. 3 steps. I just wanted to go through this one. It's very much similar to indoor, but just a couple of things that sometimes trip people up. So when you first contact the ground, that's a 0 step. If you contact the ground simultaneously with both feet, that's still just a 0 step. And then you get your 1, 2, and 3 steps. If you take any more steps, regardless of it's 2 foot, 1 foot, etc., that is then a stepping foul, unless, of course, you either try and bounce the ball and catch it again, or you drop the ball on the ground, let go, and then pick it up again. One thing, this doesn't matter how people do it, so they can land on 1 foot, that's 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. But one thing that you'll see, which is typically where steps do occur, is when people land funny, so they don't land simultaneously. So in this example, you can see, oh, sorry, I forgot this one here. One of Gus's favourites, this is still 3 steps. So if you're bunny hopping like a rabbit, 1, 2, 3 as well. Yeah, just one that I wanted to note that is a typical kind of stepping problem when you go 0, 1. So you kind of try and land on 2 feet, but you go 0, 1. And then, of course, you get yourself into trouble where you think you're on your second step, but you're on your third step, and then you take that extra step and it steps. So just look out for that from a refereeing perspective. Double dribble. So I mentioned this previously, but you can either try and bounce the ball, or drop the ball, let it go fully, and then pick the ball back up. One thing that you may see happen with this, let's say I get a pass, I drop the ball, that counts as one of my drops. I pick it up and then I try and dribble again. That's a that's an obvious double dribble and one that is likely to happen in a game. But generally, the other double dribble is very unlikely to happen. Another one that we've got to look out for is passive play. So this is a long attack. So the attack's not seeming to find space, or they're not trying to find space. That's where you can put your hand up for a passive. Passive typically is 3 passes that are looking attacking. You don't have to wait for those 3 passes. If the team is still wasting time, you can turn that ball over straight away. But generally, you're going to allow for 3 passes, and on that 3rd pass, that would be the end of the attack. You can call passive straight away if you see some deliberate time wasting. So particularly slow substitutions, not getting the ball up fast enough, having conversations with their coach during a part of the game, because that's kind of in that fair play aspect, you can call passive straight away. Ball out and going in goal. So this one here is the ball needs to completely go over the line. And when I say over the line, that's kind of an imaginary line straight up from where the outline is on the ground, straight up. So as soon as the ball crosses that line, so if it's the goal, it's really obvious, right? As soon as you can see the whole ball past the goalpost, then that's a goal. If that ball's only halfway in, that's not considered a goal yet. And it's the same thing for out. It goes straight up above the outlines. As soon as that ball goes across, it's not like basketball that you can tip it back in as long as it hasn't hit the ground. As soon as it goes over, that's considered out. The last one that I've got on here is being inside 6, so whether it's an attacker or a defender. So a player touches the sand during the play, like typically you're looking at either shooting or blocking, or maybe trying to pick up a scrap ball. So they touch the sand or use the sand to their advantage. So if they push off it to try and grab the ball, or grab the ball and use the ball to kind of push back inside the 6 zone. One thing that with all of these fouls, but particularly with the defensive fouls, we're looking at not progressive punishment, a penalty versus just a normal foul. So if any of these things ruin a clear chance to score, then it would be considered a penalty. And if you believe that we either need to do progressive punishment, or that it is unsportsmanlike or willing to hurt someone, you can go straight to suspension or disqualification at your discretion. That's a whole nother very large topic, but at a base level, that is what that is. Just want to quickly touch on 2 points versus 1 point. So at beach, you obviously get 2s for doing, generally you only ever going to see spins or alleys. That's almost typical now, although if you read the rules, it does say a spectacle goal. But generally how we do that is alleys, so people need to be fully in the air when they catch and let go of the ball. The other one that you'll see is a spin, so that's where we start with our feet pointing towards goal, so we need to be able to do a full 360, so pointing towards goal. If it's pointing away from goal, that's where you're going to see a 1 point for an incorrect spin, but pointing towards goal, spinning in a 360 and shooting. A couple of things that you'll see that is like a 50-50 is whether or not, like people are trying to jump and catch the ball at the same time. You generally see that with a poor alley pass, so that's kind of at your discretion whether or not you believe that was a alley or not. Moving on to whistling, I'm just going to explain through the whistles. Obviously, you can talk to players, so you can explain the attack. There is a handbook on on hand signals. Those will be available at the benches. I'm not going to go through them right now because this video is already long enough as it is, but those will be available and I'll probably explain them more in future videos. But a defensive foul is generally a short blast to the whistle, a long blast and running away, so going back to my position as the court ref, going back to my line ref position, so long blast, and that is going to be an offensive foul, so everyone knows that that's offensive foul. A 1 point is going to be 2 short blasts to the whistle. 2 point is a long blast with a short blast at the end, and generally accompanied by an arm swing and putting 2 points up. And a 6 meter is an extra long whistle, very similar to an offensive foul. It's about the same whistling time, but you're going to point to this penalty spot as a 7 meter. If it goes out or it's goalkeeper's ball and the whole team knows, the whole playing squad seems to be obviously knowing what's happening, you're going to signal, so goalkeeper's ball or signalling, whichever way the out is fine, and you don't need to blow the whistle. The only time you'd blow the whistle in that case if there was some confusion, so everyone could get it, and at that point you would be all good once you've let them know, and a timeout is 3 short blasts as well. If you do call time off for any reason, you just need to be aware that players need to wait for you to whistle time on before they start again as well. So sometimes with outs and stuff like that, or if the ball goes too far, you'll see that and need to put that in place. Penalties. So generally, the guy's going to be set up on the 6 goalie. You need to make sure that the right players are on the court. And once you blast the whistle, they have 3 seconds to shoot. Pretty simple, pretty standard. One of the penalties that I forgot to mention, or things that can happen in a game, is incorrect substitution. So there should only either be 4 or 3 outfield players and 1 goalkeeper on at any one time. If there's 4 players or 5 players, then you have to suspend the player that came on. So the player that came on to cause the substitution is the one that gets suspended. Hopefully that doesn't happen too much, and you can rely a little bit on their bench to help you out with that one, because it's pretty hard to notice when you've got a lot on your plate and not looking down the line all the time. Last one is the shootout in terms of their function. I'm sure you know how a shootout works, but generally what's going to happen is the line referee will stay right at the goal of where the goalkeeper is, and be staying there to see if the ball crosses the line, looking at feet touching the line, and you'll blow the whistle for the goal. The court referee runs up with the shooting player on the opposite side of the court of wherever they start. So they'll start on one corner, you start at the other one, and follow them up. And you're looking for steps as well as foot position, and if the goalkeeper's running. Just a note on running goalkeepers, obviously they have to ensure that they don't contact the player, unless, of course, it's an offensive foul because it was their space and they run into them. You can give an offensive foul, but they can't touch them in the field of play. But they can still act as a dive block or or if they get back into the goal area, goal keep. Refs are relatively strict on contact outside of the goalkeeping area in that scenario. I didn't mention dive block a lot during the penalties, but that's one thing I probably should have mentioned. One thing to note with that is once a player is spinning or alley-ooping into the goal, it's up to the defensive player to match their body position. So as soon as you're both in the air, it's up to the defender to ensure that they don't initiate contact. So regardless of how the attacking player acts, unless, of course, you get into that space and you own it first by not dive blocking. If they jump into you, then that can be considered an offensive foul. But when you're dive blocking, you have to kind of match their body position. And if they hit you in midair, it's generally a foul. If there's a little bit of contact in the arms after the shot goes from a dive block, generally you won't see that called up. But if there was contact before the shot and or like even though the shot's gone, the player's clearly gone across them and potentially caused the attacking player harm, then you're more than welcome to call a penalty. Or if the goal goes in, you can suspend the player because you believe that he was putting the attacking player at risk. Gonna slow down. We've almost hit 20 minutes now, but I just want to finish up with kind of the 5 top tips for refereeing that we've got in one of our handbooks. Look, number 1, the overarching rule of this is fair play. If you don't know exactly what the ruling is, come together with your second ref, make sure you're both happy that it's the fairest outcome for both teams, and then make your final decision known. The next one is we're there for the players and the supporters. So we need to give it the respect that they deserve. You know, if you're the shoes on the other foot, you would want that referee paying as much attention to the game as they could. You need to give it your all when you're doing refereeing. I mentioned it before, but the game's way better when the ref isn't the focus. So don't be overusing your whistle. A really good feature to do with this is don't have it hanging in your mouth. Maybe you'll blow a foul too early. It doesn't matter if you're half a second late on a foul as long as you pick it up. So have that whistle in your hand. You can think about it and make a decision and see what's best for the flow of the game. Um, I mentioned it before, but again, beach is a non-contact sport, but there will be contact. Like, be fair but firm. If the contact's unfair, either it disadvantages either player, it's going to be a foul or a penalty. And don't forget, you're not alone, right? There's two of you. Communicate. Look at your partner. You know, there's a lot of non-verbal communication you can do throughout the game. And just a little bonus one: be confident with your refereeing. You know, people hate. That's a tough word. People would rather have a referee that is making clear decisions that aren't typically right than a referee who's unwilling to make a decision, and then it starts causing players to become at risk of getting harmed, or the whistling that they're doing is not confident, so the game feels unclear and unfocused to the players. So just make sure you're not alone. Both of you, just be confident on that whistle. Look, huge video. Thanks very much for your time. I hope that's helpful to the people who are just starting refereeing and want a little bit of help. As I said, would love some feedback on this. Trying out this new way to do content, and I want to expand this to kind of a lot more refereeing, make it a little bit more technical focused rather than just me yapping. Thanks for your time, and I'll catch you in the next one. Mā te wā.